The cargo manifest listed her as Lot 47B. Species, Virelli. Condition, widow with dependent. Designation, non-essential biological salvage. It made Captain Joran Reeve's stomach turn. He was a traitor, sure, but not that kind. Not the kind who dealt in people. And yet here she was, standing in the dim cargo bay of his rust bucket freighter, the Firebrand, thin arms wrapped around a trembling child, both draped in coarse gray smocks, eyes wide with fear. Alien, fragile, alone. Her name, according to the chip embedded in her collar, was HFY. Her child was barely waist-high, with two big eyes and downy feathers still patching through the scales of his head. Male. No name recorded. Reeve turned to the broker who'd gifted them along with the cargo from the last salvaged wreck. "What am I supposed to do with them?" he growled. The broker shrugged, already walking off. "Sell 'em. The widow might fetch something on Varnak, 3. Or dump 'em in a refugee port. No one'll ask." The door sealed behind him. HFY flinched. The boy whimpered, and something in Reeve's heart cracked like old ice. Joran Reeve had never been a hero. He'd served his time in the Earth Coalition Navy. He'd seen war, fire, the worst of what both humans and aliens could do. After the Fourth Fringe War, he retired with a synthetic spine and a ship barely held together by hope and duct tape. He told himself he was done caring. He moved goods, fixed things, kept to the quiet sectors. But as HFY and her child stood silently in his cargo hold, he knew, instantly, undeniably, he wasn't going to sell them. They didn't speak the first day, or the second. Reeve didn't push. He set up a spare room, gave them clothes too big but clean, heated soup, real water, a blanket that smelled like old oil and cinnamon. The child finally spoke first. Soft chirping words, Virelli tongue. Reeve didn't understand, but the kid pointed at the stars beyond the window. "Do you want to see them?" Reeve asked. The child nodded. So he took them to the bridge. By the end of the week, the boy had a name. "Tavi," HFY said, her voice barely above a whisper. They sat beside him during morning system checks. Tavi would press buttons when told. Reeve showed him how to scan for fuel cells and identify faulty thruster coils. HFY cleaned the galley, quietly patched his spare jackets with thread-like silver strands from her own torn sleeves. Reeve didn't ask them to, didn't want servants. He wanted them to stay. But word spread. He got a ping from an old contact. A bounty had been placed on any Virelli survivors retrieved from the Haskari wrecks, specifically widows and juveniles. Rogue factions consider them valuable for experimentation or worse. "They're looking, Reeve," the contact warned. "They find you harboring them, you're dead." He shut off the comm, walked to the galley. HFY and Tavi were laughing softly over a steaming cup of sweetroot tea. Reeve had faced death 100 times. But this was the first time he feared losing something worth dying for. That night, he made a decision. He took the ship down into the atmospheric storms of the planet Navaris, a haven world surrounded by magnetic fields and ghost signatures. And he burned their registry chips in the medbay sterilizer. HFY watched, wide-eyed, as he pressed the start button and watched the metal melt to ash. "No one's taking you," he said. "You're mine now, if that's okay." Her eyes shimmered. Then she touched his hand. Time passed. They became the family. Not all at once. Not perfectly. Tavi started calling him Jor. Not father. That was sacred, but it meant trusted one in his tongue. HFY began speaking more, helping with navigation, even repairing power conduits. She cooked, sang, laughed. Reeve, once bitter, broken, found himself smiling more than he had in years. He built a special seat for Tavy on the bridge, upgraded the sleeping quarters, even installed a makeshift greenhouse for HFY's flowering moss. The Firebrand was no longer just a freighter. It was home. Then the bounty hunters came. Black-marked frigates in dead space. 3 of them. Reeve had picked up the tail too late. They jammed communications. Demanded surrender. They knew who was on board. Turn over the Varelli widow and her offspring. The lead transmission barked. Or we'll reduce your ship to atoms. Reeve cut the line. He turned to HFY. Take Tavy. Lock yourselves in the lower bay. No, she said. We stay. Together. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not fear, but fierce determination. So he nodded. Then let's fight for it. The Firebrand wasn't a warship, but Reeve had upgraded her. Pulse cannons. Shielding. An EMP flare rigged from old mines. They hit first. Took 1 frigate out in a suicide dive and a flare burst that shorted their NAV. HFY manned the plasma turret. Tavy, buckled in, relayed shield data with crisp precision. The second hunter clipped their rear. Fires broke out. They spun. But Reeve kept flying. The final ship closed in. He locked the coordinates. Brace, he growled. Then punched the jump. They landed in orbit around Helios Prime, skidding into atmosphere like a falling star. They barely made it to a hidden outpost run by an old Navy friend. Ship damaged. Crew shaken. But alive. Tavy clutched Reeve's hand the whole way. You saved us, he said, voice trembling. Reeve knelt. That's what family does. The bounty was dropped 2 months later, after the Varelli genocide trials sparked outrage across systems. HFY and Tavy were declared protected, but they didn't leave. They stayed on the Firebrand, with Jor. 2 years later, the Firebrand still sailed the stars. Only now it wasn't just a ship. It was a home. Reeve piloted. HFY sang at night in the moss garden. Tavy charted constellations and learned to fly. And everywhere they went, people whispered, there's that human who was told to sell an alien widow and her child. But he made them his family instead.